Welcome, Lloyd Longfield.
Hey, Rob. So good to be with you.
Let's
go. How much gas is in the tank?
We're good. Half tank.
How far can we go?
I think we can do 400 kilometers. We can almost get to Ottawa.
That's right. It's kind of quiet in Ottawa right now.
Yeah, fair
enough. A lot of stuff going on in Guelph, though.
So, just absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Little backstory, and I don't normally do this, but in terms of how we know each other.
Well, we were just talking at your new gigs.
Yeah.
Your new digs, I should say. Amazing to see you guys growing, your company growing. When I saw you, I was just starting at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, literally, first day, right?
First day, I can literally remember the meeting. First meeting.
Yeah.
So what does the Chamber of Commerce do to help my company? I said, I don't know, let's talk about it. You're the Chamber of Commerce. I'm trying to steer things, and from there, it's great to see you and Paul doing what you're doing, and the number of people that you're employing, people that are now alumni from your company that are working in different positions in community and doing things in the community. Super to see. So it's great to be here. So I met you on that day in 2009, January something.
Yeah.
And great to see what's going on in the last number of years.
Yeah.
And Hunter and the girls and family and picket fence, and I met your dog. And so
no picket fence yet.
So it's very cool. So before that, my story leading up to that was I came here from Winnipeg in '92.
Right.
I had a business where I did machine automation as my main thing. And one of my suppliers asked me to come out here and head their operation in Canada and sit on their board for the Americas. So I went from operating out of a house and dotted bedroom to coming out to Guelph and pitching in, and then tired of international work and travel and wanted to do something more in the community. I was missing volunteer time. And for me, if I'm not volunteering, something's wrong. And so I saw the Chamber of Commerce as a great opportunity, which I got connected with you guys and many, many other businesses in Guelph.
Yeah, big time. And super involved.
Loved it, love it still. And now I'm just a different scale. It's more national in scope. So,
well, for the people that don't know Lloyd Longfield, what do you mean by more national in scope? What are you up to these days?
I'm a member of Parliament for Guelph
and
sit on the Standing Committee for the House of Commons for Industry, Science and Technology. Sit on the Standing Committee for Agriculture, 2 strong points for Guelph that I can bring to the table. And I'm on a bunch of caucuses. I'm having a lot of fun with the Innovation and Post-Secondary Caucus that I chair. I just came back from Saskatoon, Calgary, Vancouver, looking at innovation in different cities, knowing what Innovation Guelph is doing, having been involved with starting up with that organization. So how do we scale things? And like your business, how do you scale things? And how do you do it in a way that you're not getting in the way, especially as a federal government? I'm from the government, I'm here to help. So.
Yeah, okay, so on that note, I'll hit you up with a question. Now, actually, before I get into it, though,
sure.
There's this idea you mentioned about scale.
Yeah.
And I think it's a term that a lot of people use these days. Kind of, it seems like in the experience I've had over the last, 2-3 years, there's a lot of people pivoting.
Yep.
So they're they're changing the way they do things to adopt to a marketplace and find a sustainable business model. And there's these people that want to scale. So I'm curious to just get your take on scale, because I've heard a lot of people talk about the goal to scale their business.
Right.
And I'm getting the impression, as I'm learning about scaling a business, that there's a lot more nuance to scale. And one of the biggest ones that I've found is information exchange.
Yep.
And for a company to scale, it's really important to be able to have a system in place, human, information, technology, whatever it is, to make it so that when the growth happens like crazy, the information is exchanged in the same way.
Well, and there's different levels of management. When you have a small business, operating out of my daughter's bedroom, we've
got something common. We started our Intri Media starting out of my bedroom.
Yeah, and it was a story and a half in Winnipeg. It had 1 bathroom, and we had 3 kids. So this is very similar, maybe in some scope. And then I had 3 or 4 employees, and 1 bathroom, and my wife said, at some point, you know what, it's a really good idea if you scale your business. So tell me, honey, what's that all about? Another bathroom would be good, or free up this one. So scale for us was we needed to get more space, and then we had to put different management structure in place as the business grew. And then when we got to another level, we had to really look at IT and investment and money management, and we had to look at the approach to market, what we do well versus what we don't do so well, and try and focus on what you do well, and grow the part of your business that is adding to your bottom line. It's like as a bush is growing or tree is growing, you prune it in areas where it's really not adding to the growth, it's just there, and make sure you're focusing on what actually grows your business. And you hit different scales or different numbers or different, even any type of business will hit those forks in the road where you go, I have to make a change. I have to add a piece of equipment, or I have to add more employees. I have to change my structure in some way or another. And a lot of people fail at that stage because they're entrepreneurs. They are good at, in my case, I was great at fixing pumps, motors, valves, cylinders, put a wrench in my hand. I'm a happy guy. I could design the machine, go and install the machine. At some point, I had to get other people to either do that or get somebody to manage the company.
Right.
And so I did both. I got more mechanics and I got more engineers, and then as I got to the next step, I got business partners from Saskatoon that managed the business, so I could work on the business instead of working on the management, the IT structure, and that. So at that point in my life, it was, I was 29 years old when I started the business. Now I'm fast forward to 34, 33 years old.
Right.
I'm not doing what I'm good at. I'm trying to do the accounting and stuff where there's professionals that actually do that for a living.
Yeah.
Bring in the professionals so I can focus on what's going on 3,000 feet underground in a mine where I'm happy.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that scale is, there's a decision. Then you also look back, I was in business for 28 years before the chamber, and then another 8 years at the chamber. So 60 years old, which is crazy. But that happens. Life.
And still riding your bike to come to this.
Still riding my bike and drinking water, but it's
good on you.
It's I'm doing what I'm loving doing. So that's another piece of it. But when you look back and you say, what would have happened if I didn't add those employees? I was so happy with this small business, small number of accounts. You can't have those questions. You just have to do what you think is right at the time.
Right.
And I would never have moved to Guelph. I would never be on this adventure if I didn't go through the rest of the adventure. But for some people, scaling is a decision that no is also an answer.
Absolutely.
This is perfect for me. I'm perfectly happy. I've got a good income. I've got good clients. I'm doing what I love doing. Why do I need to try to be the size of a multinational?
Right. So then it comes back to what's the goal of the person that's running the ship?
Right. Is all growth good? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
So then fast forward to a country.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. So then that's the question I want to ask is, coming from an entrepreneurial organization and a business that you started and run, into a Chamber of Commerce organization, which was, connecting and advocating on behalf of an amazing business community here.
It's incredible.
To then going to a national stage and contributing to running a country.
Right.
Where
we've got other people helping with that part. I'm contributing
to running the country.
Yeah.
A lot of people would consider the entrepreneurial organization kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum, to the government body, and in terms of speed and decision making and all that kind of stuff. So what have you learned and tried to instill, or even not, avoided maybe, going from those contrasting environments to where you are now, and how is that going? What is it?
I think you've done a lot around leadership. You've had leadership forums. You have a leadership lunch that you bring people together to talk about leadership questions. And I think I'm going to answer this in terms of leadership. It's the difference between strategic and tactical.
Right.
So at the government level, at the level of an elected person that's representing Guelph at the federal government, we look at the strategic level. Right. So we say, where do we want to head? Some idea of how to get there, what might be needed, but the actual implementation is done by the incredible civil service that we have. Chamber of Commerce, I could look at Intrigue Media and say, boy, here's a strategy you might want to think about. But I don't get into the operations of Intrigue Media. I might say, have you guys thought of this? Or you might say to me, Chamber of Commerce, you sat on the membership committee. How do we interact with people? How do we help them promote their businesses? You do that as a professional. So you leave the tactical to the professionals that do tactical work. And I think in leadership positions, you have to be always looking at the strategic. And so the government looks at the strategy for the country.
Small task.
Yeah, well, it's only one country, but we do work with other countries. And then what's the strategy for North America?
Right.
And now we're going into NAFTA. So
well, and I won't even go into that conversation.
Well, it's a strategic discussion.
Yeah, it is.
But the implementation is professionals in the civil service, which when I look at that, and even more importantly, professionals from the business community, when it comes to NAFTA, they know what goes on across the border. They know what happens every day. And they need to inform us, so as we're setting strategy, we know whether what we're doing makes sense to the people that have to implement strategy.
Right.
So I think in any business, to separate strategic and tactical, as I said, when you scale a company, there's some strategic decisions that are made.
Yeah.
Do you want to live with the tactical? The big question, or do you want somebody else to live with it so you can keep doing strategic? And
and hopefully somebody that's really good at it and better at it.
Yeah, if those words make sense. I mean, I think it's because I kind of live and breathe that. Some people might wonder what I'm talking about, but I think it's where you're going versus how you're going to get there, and the how you're going to get there is the tactical piece that is very important. It has to be focused on, but not by your elected officials,
right?
Necessarily. We then, in a board of directors, and we've sat on a lot of not-for-profits together. You still sit on a lot of not-for-profits.
Yep.
Great work that's being done by boards. Then you have the operational teams that then do the implementation. They feed back to the board to say, is it working? How are we going to measure it? And so for me, I used to live and die on 4 numbers off the balance, or 2 off the balance sheet, 2 off the general ledger, and the other pages of reports. Those were details.
Right.
If we've got a bottom line, if we've got inventory turns, if our return on sales, our profit over sales number is good, and if our receivables are under control, the rest of it's probably going to be okay.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's interesting you bring that up. There's kind of two big ideas that I think you just touched on. One of them is
good to see you, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic to see you. No, it's cool.
The countryside.
We're just
Guelph
driving.
Lake. We're driving by Guelph Lake.
Yeah.
You guys can't see it, but it's, it isn't thunderstorms yet, and it's nice to be in the neighborhood.
Oh,
so back to you. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Squirrel.
Thanks. Yeah, feel free. No problem. Squirrel anytime you want, man. I didn't lose my train of thought, which is good. So the first one was around this idea of vision casting, and you talked a little bit about defining the strategy and where we're going, and then leaving it up to others to figure out the how of it all.
Yep.
Which I find is really powerful, and I've done a lot of reading, research, practice, this kind of stuff around. Hey, it's really important for leaders to define why we're doing what we're doing and what needs to happen,
right? And
then let the people that are best at doing it figure out how to make it happen,
right?
But in practicing that,
there's a very fuzzy line there.
So I'm not sure if it's a strategic how or a tactical how, because we've given the why, we've given the what, but there's still a yearning for how are we going to do it. Right. So have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I think when you look at what the leader's role is versus the manager's role,
right?
The leader and manager have to work together. Sometimes it's in your own head, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But at the scale of your company now, you've got other people involved. So strategically, we're trying to get here is this, and there's going to be a how are we going to get there. Part of that how answer is going to fall under strategic, and some of it's going to fall under tactical. Right. Do you need bigger markets to go after, or are you good in your own market? Is it just a different approach? So that's a gray area, fuzzy area that's good to have fuzzy. It's because if you are working with a manager, you need to know, what's my role in this and what's your role in this. And that person also needs to know what's your role in this and what's my role. So if you're trying to look out the windshield down the road and I'm trying to figure out what's going on at the next intersection, at some point those two things are going to require a conversation.
Yeah, well, and that's the biggest thing, right? Communication.
Yep.
So when it comes to decision-making and conceptual,
sure,
I find that, the more people in the room, the more time it takes, the more difficult it can become.
Yep.
And there's been
another choice.
Kind of I don't know, I'm not sure if it's a thing that works everywhere, but I found that the more we can get weigh-in from people, the more buy-in we'll get when the decision gets made.
Right.
But then at some point, that's just not possible when you have, even looking at a country. You can't have 30 million people weighing in on every decision.
No, but let's put it, I think those two things are very parallel, and I think they relate to each other. That there's 338 people in the House of Commons that are elected by their 36 37 million Canadians.
Right.
We can't have 37 million in the room, so we pare it down to 338.
Yeah.
Then we've got 10 people on each committee. And those get into the problem a little bit deeper. But you really rely on the 10 people on the committee to really kind of get the corners knocked off, so that when it comes to the bigger group, we've got something worth discussing, so that when it goes to the really big group, the millions of people, they will understand what thought has gone into it. So selecting the people around the table, whether you're electing a person and voting for them, or whether you're choosing a board of directors or a project team, make sure that person is going to add a value, and hopefully a different value than the other people at the table, so you get discussions where not everybody's agreeing with what's going on. And I'm seeing in my new world, that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you get people around the room with different backgrounds and they're saying, you know what, I don't agree with you on that, and you're encouraged to do that, you come up with a better answer. Versus somebody at the top tells you this is what we're going to do, and I guess that's what we're going to do.
Right.
So it's the same with your business. It's the same with the government. Democracy is a good thing, whether you're selling widgets, or whether you're trying to figure out whether the country is heading in the right direction.
Yeah, that's neat.
It's so cool how it ties together.
At some point, I feel intuitively, this is totally intuitive, and I don't know if I'm on the right page with this, so you can obviously chime in because you're much more experienced with this, and especially at the scale you're at. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a speed to quality compromise, because like at some point you can take all the time in the world to make a decision to get a really good quality decision. But at what point do you say, okay, we've got to make a decision, and we have to sacrifice a little bit more quality in order to make a decision within a time frame?
So if I'm on my bicycle right now, I'm going to shift down to first gear and then second and third gear. So in the first gear, I'm on my own, and I'm trying to figure out, what's the minimum viable option is what I used to work on. So I'm building a machine. You're never going to guess everything that's going to happen.
Right.
So what can we do that'll be safe, that will give us an idea, and then continue to improve it from there? You shift into the second gear and you're going into continuous improvement phase, and you go, okay, I never thought that was going to happen, but guess what, it happened. So we're going to have to change something. And then the third is when you're optimizing. So you hit the third gear, we're learning our lessons, we can make tweaks as we go, but basically things are working pretty well. So you got to get the minimum viable option to the electorate, because if we're going to be looking at things under they call it the bubble in Ottawa, and you're not going to get out to the field and try your ideas, you're going to come up with something nobody's going to understand, and then it's going to blow up anyway. So try and get it so that it's safe, so that it's being done properly, and then let the market work on it, let the people talk to me, and improve. So it's lean processes.
It's so great to hear. I mean,
and it all kind of works that way, and that's hopefully as we improve our country every year. We just had our 150th, and we want to be better in the 151st. So
that's cool. I mean,
what big stuff we're talking about, but it's all the same principles.
What I got out of that is, and I mean, I don't mean I'm going to. It's be a bit of a hyperbole, but I've always talked about this idea that one day of trying something is going to teach you more than a year's worth of planning something.
Absolutely.
And to hear that there's this mindset of even at a federal level, hey, we need to get something out to see how people are responding to things, and then use that learning to iterate and improve. Is
so
awesome.
I'll give you the big one that I'm working on right now.
Go for it.
Took me to Saskatoon, Calgary, Vancouver, and then I'm heading out to the Maritimes and doing some work here locally as well and regionally. Is innovation. And what's a supercluster? Go to business and say, you tell me. They go, what do you mean? Well, we're trying to develop a concept of supercluster. Our role is to help finance it. Our role is to set a strategy. Your role is to tell us what you need to help your business in a supercluster. So tell us what it is. So the businesses have to define that for us. And then they have to come with some cash too, so that they've got commitment in the project. And that's a different approach versus sitting in Ottawa for a few years and figuring out what are we going to do to create a supercluster. Go to the market. Say to the businesses, what do you need for support? How do we make that happen? And then we go back into our committees and say, this is what I've heard. So I've got a presentation to make to our caucus on September 7th. And this is what I found out from the business community. At the same time, the Department of Innovation and Economic Development is going across the country asking the same questions. Are you getting the same answers?
Right.
The ones that line up, okay, I think we're good. The ones that aren't, got to check that.
Cool.
But let's keep things rolling in the meantime, because the businesses aren't going to wait for the government.
Oh, it's so refreshing to hear about this idea of keeping things rolling. But I mean, it's not just, I don't mean government, from a government perspective. I hear so many...
Everybody's got to get out to the street, talk to your customers.
That's it.
They'll tell you.
Make a decision, see how it messes up or works, make it better.
And with your family. You're going to be learning every day with those little guys.
Oh man, it's the truth.
And they'll tell you what's working and what isn't. Sometimes strategically they're going to be on a different page than you, and you have to kind of help that along, especially in the teenage years and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, they're implementing their own life, and you have to set the strategy for them.
Oh man, that is the truth. Good full circle though. I like that, because we started the whole thing off with the kids and now we finished it that way. So anyway, Lloyd, this has been amazing.
Rob, always great to see you, man.
Okay, thanks so much, dude.
Okay, cheers.
Okay, cheers. See you guys.